I ran down the crowded street, dodging people and cars, my heart pounding in my chest. My interview was in 10 minutes, and I was still blocks away. If I missed this, I'd lose the one shot I had at escaping the crushing weight of poverty. But just as I turned the corner, I saw him. A young man, mid-20s, well-dressed but pale, gripping his chest as he staggered toward the street. His face twisted in agony. I hesitated. A few feet ahead, the pedestrian light flashed green. I could still make it if I ran. Then I heard it. The sharp, gasping breath, the sheer desperation in his eyes. Something inside me snapped. I ran toward him instead, grabbing his arm before he collapsed. "Hey, stay with me," I cried, shaking him. His eyes fluttered, his breathing shallow. A heart attack? An allergy? Poison? I didn't know, but I couldn't let him die. Ignoring the blaring horns and irritated bystanders, I pulled him to the sidewalk and yelled for help. "Someone call an ambulance." No one moved. People just stared, recording with their phones. My pulse hammered. I didn't have time for this. I dropped to my knees, tilted his head back, and checked his pulse, faint, erratic. I made a split-second decision. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, and begged them to hurry. "Ma'am, stay with him," the operator instructed. So I did. I clutched his hand, whispering, "Hold on, okay? Just hold on." The interview slipped from my mind. At that moment, nothing else mattered but keeping this man alive. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was drenched in sweat. They loaded him onto the stretcher. One of the paramedics looked at me. "You saved his life," she said. "If you hadn't been here." I nodded, my chest tight. Then, reality slammed into me. I checked the time. 40 minutes past my interview. I felt sick. My one chance was gone. I trudged back home, dreading what awaited me. My aunt, bitter, cruel, resentful. She let me stay under her roof after my parents died, but never let me forget that I was a burden. The moment I stepped inside, her voice lashed out. "You look like hell. Did you mess up another opportunity?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. She cut me off with a laugh. "Of course you did. Useless. Always making excuses." I wanted to scream. I saved someone's life. But I knew better. She wouldn't care. Instead, I clenched my fists, whispered, "I'll find another job," and walked away. The sun had barely set when I heard it. The deep, powerful rumble of engines. It grew louder, closer. Then screech. I peeked out the window and froze. 8 black Rolls Royces lined the street. People gathered outside, murmuring in shock. "What the hell?" my aunt hissed. The back door of the lead car opened, and he stepped out. The man I had saved. He looked different now. Composed, powerful, exuding wealth. His suit was pristine, his movements controlled. He approached my house with deadly purpose. My aunt's attitude flipped instantly. She plastered on a fake smile. "Oh, what a lovely surprise. Are you looking for someone?" His cold eyes landed on her, then shifted to me, and he spoke the words that changed my life. "I've been looking for you." I barely had time to react before his guard stepped forward, parting the crowd. "I owe you my life," he said, his voice low, firm. I opened my mouth to respond, but he wasn't done. "I don't take debts lightly." He turned to the lead guard. "Prepare the papers." "Papers?" I echoed. His gaze burned into me. "I'm hiring you." I stammered. "Hiring me? For what?" "To work for me," he said smoothly. "Any position you want." My breath hitched. "A job? Just like that? But why?" His eyes darkened. "Because I don't let my debts go unpaid." I stared at Leon in disbelief, the weight of his offer pressing down on me like a tidal wave. A billionaire, a man who could have anyone work for him, was offering me a job. Not out of pity, not as a handout, but because he felt he owed me. My voice cracked as my mind raced through 1,000 questions. "What exactly do you mean by any position I want?" Leon's dark gaze remained unwavering. "You tell me, and it's yours." My breath hitched. Could this really be happening? I had spent years struggling to even land a basic job. I had no connections, no family support, no safety net. And now this, the world I knew, where I had to fight for every crumb, every inch of progress, had just been shattered in an instant. "What?" I finally whispered, my fingers curling into fists at my sides. Leon exhaled sharply. "Because I don't take debts lightly," he repeated, his voice like iron. I swallowed hard. It didn't feel real. Was this some kind of trick? But as I looked into his cold, calculating eyes, I realized this was not a man who played games. A deep silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. Then, out of nowhere, a sharp, condescending laugh. I turned just in time to see my aunt, her face twisted in an expression of utter amusement. "Oh, please," she sneered, her eyes darting between me and Leon. "This is ridiculous. You think she's worthy of working for you?" My stomach dropped. Leon's expression darkened into something dangerous. He didn't respond immediately, which only made the air feel thicker, suffocating. Instead, he turned to me, arching a brow. "Who is she?" he asked, his voice deceptively calm. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the lump of humiliation and anger rising in my throat. She's no one," my aunt cut in smoothly, waving a dismissive hand. "Just a charity case living under my roof." The words stung, slicing through me like a blade. She had never hidden her contempt for me, but now, in front of him, Leon's sharp eyes flickered toward me. "Is that true?" I felt my nails dig into my palm, my entire body tense with humiliation. But before I could respond, my aunt scoffed. "Look at her," she spat, gesturing at my worn-out clothes, my tired eyes. "She's a nobody. You think someone like her could belong in your world?" Silence. And then, Leon smirked. Not a kind smirk. A chilling, amused, predatory smirk. "I see," he murmured, slipping his hands into his pockets. My aunt opened her mouth to say something else, but Leon turned, facing me again. "You saved my life," he said, as if she weren't even there. My throat tightened. "You put aside your own future to help me. That means something." A lump formed in my throat. Then his smirk vanished. His voice dropped, edged with steel. "Do you want this opportunity or not?" I stiffened. It wasn't just an offer. It was a challenge. Right then, I knew this wasn't just about a job. It was about proving myself. To him, to her, and to myself. I took a breath, ignoring the way my aunt's face contorted in disgust. And then, I lifted my chin and met Leon Sinclair's gaze head-on. "Yes, I want this." The moment I said those words, Leon's smirk returned, satisfied this time. "Good." He turned to one of his men. "Prepare the contract." "Wait, contract." My voice faltered as one of his assistants pulled out a thick, pristine document from a briefcase and handed it to me. I hesitated before taking it with shaky hands. My aunt, still standing there, let out a breathless, angry laugh. "This is insane," she hissed. "She's going to mess it up, and you're going to regret wasting your time." Leon didn't even spare her a glance. But I did. For the first time in years, I looked at her, not with fear, not with desperation, but with clarity. She wanted me to fail. She had always wanted me to fail. And that was exactly why I couldn't. Leon watched me carefully. "Do you need time to think?" I forced my shoulders back. "No," I said firmly. "I don't." Then, I signed a contract. And just like that, I entered his world. Working for Leon Sinclair was nothing like I expected. I assumed he would hand me some desk job, something meaningless, a token position. But no. From the very first day, I realized he had other plans. "This isn't a favor," he had told me, his sharp gaze locking onto mine. "You'll work. You'll learn. You'll earn your place." And he meant it. For the next several weeks, I was thrown into an entirely different world. A world of power, wealth, and cutthroat business. I wasn't given a safety net. I was given expectations. Leon personally ensured that I learned everything. How do you negotiate a deal? How do you tell when someone's lying? How do you survive in a world where everyone wants to tear you down? He didn't spoon-feed me answers. He threw me into the deep end. And for the first time in my life, I fought to swim. I adapted. I learned. I became someone different. Someone my aunt would never recognize. Someone unstoppable. The transformation wasn't instant. It was brutal. Leon's world was a battlefield, and I was thrown into the fire with no armor, no shield, just raw survival instincts. From the moment I set foot in his company's headquarters, I realized something dangerous. No one wanted me there. I wasn't some highly qualified business prodigy. I was a nobody who had walked in off the streets. And people like that, they were meant to fail. I wasn't supposed to survive. Leon's inner circle, his executives, his senior staff, they watched me like vultures, waiting for me to crash and burn. His personal assistant, a woman named Madeline Gray, was the first to test me. I had barely settled into my new position when she approached, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a gun cocking. She was the kind of woman who looked born for power. Tall, poised, sharp-featured, with ice blue eyes that sliced through you like a scalpel. "You won't last a week," she said, her voice coldly amused. "Leon might think you're special, but in this world, you're just another temporary distraction. A challenge. A warning." And I knew, if I faltered even once, they would tear me apart. But here's the thing about being doubted your entire life. It makes you hungry. It makes you dangerous. And for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting. Leon didn't coddle me. If anything, he was harsher than the rest. While his executives whisper behind my back, he pushed me harder. Every morning, I was met with an impossible challenge. Write me a full report on our next acquisition by noon. Memorize the key players in the Sinclair portfolio by tomorrow. Negotiate this deal. Get them to lower the price without using my name. Every task was a test, a trial by fire, and failure was not an option. The first few weeks, I barely slept. I barely ate. I devoured information, studying late into the night, absorbing everything I could about Leon's empire. I made mistakes, but I learned fast, faster than they expected. And when Madeline tried to set me up for failure, when she forgot to send me the right documents before a crucial meeting, I walked into that room anyway, empty-handed, unprepared. But I didn't panic. I watched. I listened. And when the moment came, I opened my mouth and tore their arguments apart. Not because I had documents, but because I had learned to think like Leon. And when he saw what I had done, for the first time, he smiled. Not a smirk, not amusement, a real, genuine smile. And that's when I knew. I wasn't just surviving. I was winning. It happened in the middle of a high-profile meeting. A negotiation with a rival corporation, Atlas Holdings. They had been playing hardball for weeks, refusing to lower their price. Leon was known for his ruthless strategy, his ability to break even the strongest competitors. But that day, he let me lead. The moment I took my seat at the long, polished table, I felt the weight of their gazes. Disbelief, amusement, underestimation. Atlas Holdings CEO, a man named Howard Lockwood, leaned forward, his lips twitching in a smirk. "This is a bold move, Sinclair," he mused, eyeing me like I was a child playing dress-up. "Letting your assistant negotiate for you." A soft chuckle rippled around the room. But Leon, he just leaned back in his chair, completely unbothered. "She's not my assistant," he said. "She's the one who's about to make you regret underestimating her." The laughter died. And just like that, the game was on. Lockwood was a shark. He pushed, taunted, circled like a predator. He expected me to crack, to hesitate, to show weakness. But I didn't. I studied every hesitation, every flicker of uncertainty in his expression. And when I struck, it was like a blade finding its target. I called his bluff. I exposed his weak points. I flipped the negotiation so fast that by the time he realized what had happened, he was already trapped. His smirk faded. His fingers tightened around his pen. And in the end, he had no choice but to agree to our terms. Leon didn't say a word as we left that boardroom. But as soon as we were alone, he turned to me, his eyes burning with something undeniable. "Pride. Not bad," he murmured. And that's when I knew. I had beaten them at their own game. The news spread like wildfire. The nobody girl had outmaneuvered one of the biggest sharks in the industry. And suddenly, people weren't mocking me anymore. They were watching. They were whispering. They were afraid. Madeline, she didn't try to sabotage me again. The executives who had doubted me, they fell silent. And Leon, for the first time, he trusted me with real power. I thought I had left my past behind. I thought I had escaped. But life had a cruel sense of irony. Because just as I cemented my place in Leon's world, my aunt came knocking, begging, crying. Suddenly, the woman who had called me worthless needed me. Because the moment people realized I had power, she wanted a piece of it. And for the first time, I was the one who could say no. She showed up at Sinclair Enterprises, making a scene in the lobby. Tears, apologies, false regret. I let her talk. I let her beg. And then, I looked her in the eyes and said the words I had waited my whole life to say. "I don't owe you anything." Her face paled. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. I felt free. Leon had given me an opportunity, but I was the one who had earned it. And when I stood beside him at our next major deal, an equal, not a project, I realized something. I had built something no one could take away from me. Not my past, not my enemies, not even Leon Sinclair. Because now, I wasn't just in his world. I was a force in it. I had started as a girl who saved a man's life. Now, I was untouchable. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a nobody anymore. I saw someone who had taken everything the world threw at her and turned it into power. And as Leon stood beside me, watching me with that unreadable smirk, I knew I had won.